Welcome in, everybody, to TYT Sports on this Friday. You got myself, as usual. And yet we have another special guest, as we like to do every single Friday. It is producer extraordinaire, the man of many, many talents, hip-hop producer Ism, everybody. Yeah, give it up for him. Woo! You shouldn't clap for yourself, man.
Oh, it's too late now.
Clearly. All right, we're going to get into a bunch of stuff as it pertains to Ism. He has worked with Jason Derulo. He has worked with Chris Brown. He has been involved in the producing scene for many, many years. And he also has, well, some work to do with the World Cup. We'll get into that momentarily. The biggest story of the day that we must address, though, has to do with Colin Kaepernick. And here's what Pro Football Talk put out today, and why there is a double standard within the San Francisco 49ers team within the Know Your Rights camp with Colin Kaepernick and then a guy named Reuben Foster. So Reuben Foster, according to Pro Football Talk, has been charged with 3 felonies and a domestic violence case. That's god-awful. So then the Mercury News went forward and said 49ers Reuben Foster charged with 3 felonies and domestic violence case after allegedly punching his girlfriend 8 to 10 times in the head during a February incident. And then they went on to say, via Pro Football Talk, prosecutors charged Foster with 1 felony for that violent act, another felony for forcefully attempting to prevent the victim from reporting the crime, and a 3rd felony for possessing an assault weapon. Foster is charged with a misdemeanor for possessing a large capacity magazine. Also not great. The charges could carry up to 11 years in prison. And then Tim Kawakami, who's been in the Bay for a long time. I heard all this whispered. If you knew the real story, you know it's not that serious stuff. Throughout the 49ers is error-strewn and disastrous handling of the legal situations involving guys like Aldon Smith, Ray McDonald. Each time the whispers were wrong, by the way. And then Adam Schefter went on ESPN saying that even though the Seattle Seahawks reached out to Colin Kaepernick, they postponed it after he said that he would kneel during the national anthem. And then they signed some jackbag named Stephen Morris, who absolutely no one knows about, that Schefter tweeted out. I've talked about this many times. We have discussed this many times on this very medium. With Colin Kaepernick wanting to kneel for the right things, and yet the 49ers, it seems, doing the wrong thing by continually employing and paying a guy like Reuben Foster. Is there not this renowned knowledge at this point, in your opinion, that the NFL doesn't really care about players' rights?
Yeah.
They don't like outspoken players, as they've silenced Colin Kaepernick. They've silenced Eric Reed, who knelt from the very beginning with Colin Kaepernick. And they're allowing guys like Reuben Foster to remain on the team because it seems they don't even care about women's rights and domestic violence.
Right. Well, yeah, I could see that way too. With Colin, it's completely wrong. Like, he should be able to, definitely take that kneel and do whatever he feels like he could do within the bounds of our Constitution. He shouldn't be penalized for that. But pointing the finger at, these other guys saying, well, they should be gone too. It should be more of a system where it's like, okay, this guy over here, guy B has done wrong. Okay, then he gets handled for doing what he did. Colin gets handled for what he's done. I don't think there's a connection between the two. However,
between the two cases, you're saying?
Yeah, between the two cases, what's his name? What's the second guy's name?
Reuben Foster.
Reuben Foster, yeah. He's going to get handled by the legal system, and it's not going to interfere with his job. As Justice Colin Kaepernick should get interfered with by the legal system, but it doesn't affect his job.
Right.
And you can't interfere with Colin because he hasn't done anything wrong.
Right, exactly. That's like...
So if Reuben Foster goes and does this 11 years, then I feel like, okay, then that was that. But, it shouldn't be like, oh, he's an NFL player, so it's about NFL. It's about Reuben Foster as a human being, not about his job.
I agree with you, and we could take it on a case-by-case basis. My main problem is that, as you stated, and as I've stated many times, Colin Kaepernick has done nothing wrong.
Exactly.
He's done nothing wrong, and he's kicked out of the league. Yeah. So, we have the Bob McNairs of the world, of the Houston Texans, who was quoted as saying, we can't let the inmates run the prison, even though he butchered the quote. Not only that, but he was speaking for black players in the NFL, saying that we can't have inmates run the prison at an owners meeting in New York. He's faced backlash. He apologized, and then he's like, I apologize for apologizing. I shouldn't have apologized, which was just, it was ridiculous. So what I don't understand is the NBA is so far advanced, right? Yeah. And they like LeBron speaking out. They like Steph Curry not necessarily calling Donald Trump a bum, even though we could all go way forward with that vocabulary for what he is and is not. But I just don't understand why the NFL is so far behind the other leagues when it pertains to stuff like Colin Kaepernick.
Well, at times like this, I feel like it's things behind the scenes that we don't really know. So it might be a reason for why we just have no idea. It may be the same circumstances as like both sectors have the same amount of say-so in what they do. Maybe it's just something behind the scenes that we don't know.
What do you mean by that exactly?
Honestly, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. It just may be something we don't know.
Well, we have to think because of like the sample size that we have now. Behind the scenes, it seems like, well, they now have colluded, in my opinion. The case is ongoing, but they've colluded. The owners have, the GMs have, by saying we cannot sign him, even though he's better than Stephen Morris, who I've never heard of before prior to today, who the Seattle Seahawks signed, and like a Nathan Peterman who throws 5 interceptions in the first half for the Buffalo Bills. Like this is clear as day at this point why they are silencing.
And I was looking it up too. They're like, I think it's 44 players in the NFL who have done stuff, and they're still allowed to play. You know what
Totally.
I mean? And like I said earlier, I don't see the problem with that, but connecting it to the job is what I see the problem with. You know,
Connecting him kneeling.
Yeah, connecting him kneeling, and then also the players committing crimes, because you know it's people committing crimes every day. You know, and it doesn't get major news coverage, but just because they are in the NFL, then it gets that coverage. You know, you have countless players that are doing things they aren't supposed to do, but they're good at playing football. You know, if we're talking about the NFL, we need to be talking about, okay, what's his stats looking like? And if we're talking about him as a person and what crimes he's committed, okay, you look at that, but you hold the two separate. You know what I mean?
Right. I just feel like if someone is standing up, or rather kneeling, for something that is so right and so pure and so honest and so true, and bringing attention to something that has gone on forever in this country, and someone who's like hitting his girlfriend 8 to 10 times, I think I know where to side at this point.
Okay, so now it's more so about, okay, you're ignoring this, but you're not ignoring this.
Yeah, I think that's been the fundamental problem throughout.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as far as Colin, I hope he keeps doing what he's doing. You know, so as of now, it's like the Seahawks are asking him to work out with them or something like that. That's the situation.
Well, they asked him, and then they postponed it because they asked him, "Are you going to kneel?" He said yes, and they're like, "Okay, we're ditching this completely."
Well, I mean, I feel like he could have said nah and kneeled anyway.
Right.
That would have been cool. But
maybe then they could write something in his contract, even though it's totally ridiculous and ludicrous to do so.
Well, I mean, even if they write in his contract, you probably can't cut off his First Amendment right. I'm sure the Constitution.
Oh man, I don't know. Considering how under wraps the NFL is with like the rights that they don't want their players to have, and how backwards they are as just an organization, potentially they could. I mean, Jerry Jones, who owns the Dallas Cowboys, Des Bryant got released today, owns the Dallas Cowboys. He said at one point that he is not going to play players who kneel during the anthem. And then they did the staged kneel for 5 seconds. Jerry Jones looks at the camera, as he always is prone to do, knowing where it is at all times. And then they stand up and they're locking arms. It was a complete charade, in my opinion. So he said that previously. So can they?
Did they still
maybe?
play?
I'm sorry?
Did they still play after they kneeled?
Well, what they did was they kneeled for about 5 seconds as a unity-building protest, even though that's not what it was.
Right.
And then they got up and they stood for the national anthem. No one knelt.
Oh, so they knelt before. I mean, I don't know what could.
They knelt before the anthem.
Well, I guess it brings the same amount of awareness, somewhat, but not really.
Right.
You know, I feel like if you want to kneel, you should kneel. If you don't, you don't. If you want to say the Pledge of Allegiance, you say it. If you don't, you don't. If you want to sing
the Pledge of Allegiance.
If you want to sing the national anthem, you sing it. If you don't, you don't. Nobody should tell you you need to do this. I mean, that's kind of weird, isn't it?
Yes,
if
completely.
You have someone standing over, like, if you don't say this, it makes no sense.
As a record producer, can we agree on something that America the Beautiful should be the national anthem?
I do not know that song, but
America the Beautiful
from the title.
Ray Charles. Have you seen The Sandlot before?
No. I remember bits and pieces of The Sandlot. I never really watched movies as a kid. I feel like Lift Every Voice and Sing would be a good national anthem too.
Which one?
Lift Every Voice and Sing.
How's that go?
Oh, you want me to sing it?
Yeah.
I can't sing, man. I stay behind the boards.
Right.
We can YouTube it.
All right, I will. Fair point. All right, let us know your thoughts on Colin Kaepernick, where you stand with the National Football League, Reuben Foster, San Francisco 49ers organization as a whole, and everything else in between.